Cradle, The Rise of the Chosen, Chapter 13, Part 2. They reached the terminal of the Himmel. It was an outdoor boarding station and it was eerily silent but for Takuma and Gianoa's banter, which they kept to promote good spirits. The ticket man had an odd look about him. It was as if when Takuma, or actually Gianoa, paid him, he was looking right through them and smiling, or the border of one with a mental handicap or one who was insane. So they sat on a low steel bench with their packs and waited. They let the pack mules stay in the holding area, not caring if they were stolen or not, but Takuma was sure Gianoa's father would object, probably remarking that it was terribly wasteful. Takuma was talking to his wife for about half the time they waited, which was about 5 hours, and he kept coming back to the current conversation with no idea what they had previously been discussing. The Himmel came and they boarded. Takuma was tight-wound because he knew that he was facing a world of issues come the entering of his contest of the plagues. They found plush vinyl seats of a dark emerald hue, and Gianoa fell asleep with her head resting on her own shoulder. Takuma knew that would be no good when she awakened. Dowdies, cramped city, he said to himself, and then positioned his sleeping wife to rest against him on his shoulder and arm. So the train ride went on into the night, and then early morning. He was constantly coming back to his senses, without being able to track his thoughts. It was disturbingly odd, but he figured he was just feeling the effects of all that walking, and for his continued moderate fasting. He'd eaten, but it was very little to maintain a healthy output of energy. So he rode on and learned not to be bothered by his somehow empty, forgetful mind. The train stopped, giving Takuma a perfect view of the rising sun over a forested hill, but he'd be walking the opposite way, west, and when he and Gianoa got on the deboarding deck, he could see the proof of the plague, or at least one of them. Miles off to the south, he saw a smudgy wall of black clouds and could make out the trees thrashing in the wind. Gianoa uncinched her pack and brought out both of their parkas, and they walked further and further, slowly introducing themselves to the storm. It was so odd that Takuma could track the happenings of the storm, but couldn't remember what he was thinking or what the heck Gianoa might have said 5 minutes ago. He referred, spiritually, to his Itoriyama, but as he was accustomed, they just watched and gave no indication of right or wrong, or better yet, true or false, fantasy, lying to himself. They broached the border into Pohira with weary legs and hard breathing. There was an impasse in the current path because the water came, or would have gone up to Gianoa's neck if they tried to go on the current trajectory. So they took the long way around, and after going a handful of miles out of the way, they were on the hillside portion of the village, where a good population of the current survivors were holed up in huts, stores, warehouses, and restaurants, or better termed indoor food stands. He could tell the people recognized him, but they seemed to have no malice or distaste for Takuma any longer, and he started preaching the Tikol Verti, Itramalo Mintul, the one true God, the ultimate Father. And he was ignored at first, and his words were tremendously loud, but he couldn't recall what he said. Sure enough, some started nodding along, and he saw that he had the survivors' attention, and he was pronouncing about God so well that he felt healed himself, and it was becoming easier to forget, to care about knowing what he was saying or remembering what he was so eloquently espousing. Then, out of the depths of the crowd, his mother emerged, and he saw her before she could tell that he did, and he pronounced God's name with even more fire and fury, and had his mother sobbing on her knees in front of him, and she repeated, Irultul, Irultul, the truth, the truth. Takuma had no choice but to gather her up and take her aside so that they could heal. Yamilu, Gandhi, I'm sorry, son. Gindu, Ayoel, for all I've done. Hitumli, Kulio, Tridi, Ayul, I can do nothing but forgive you. Etulumi, Jindi Tikul, We are suffering for defying God, she remarked. Eotul, oi, ayo, roriti. I will give him everything to save you, Takuma vowed. Quitulu, kum. You're glowing, Takuma, his mother screamed, and Takuma looked down at his clothes and saw they were shining in a soft yellow light. And as fast as his heart rate sped up, that was how quickly he was taken up and up. He passed somehow through the ceiling, without disturbing the structure in the lightest bit. He found himself incredibly high over the black clouds, and then he hovered thousands of feet above and begged God to save the people. He thanked God for bringing him back home, and especially to his mother. He thanked God for his wife and his fortune with the Iturayama. Then a strong wind from what Takuma assumed was from space somehow, and it blew all the clouds into nothingness, and as he slowly descended back to the village, the floodwaters were drying up, and the people were thanking the Father as they came out into the sunshine, and just as Takuma's feet touched the dry ground again. He was walking out the fog onto the steps of the Himul, and Jiano was looking at him strangely. Itoroyama, Hiuli, Oyayo, Jintoi, Tifua. Your Itoroyama had you in a trance, I think, Queen Jiano informed. You okay, baby? Takuma remembered now and wondered what the heck it all meant. Was this to discourage him? Was all that catharsis to inspire him or guide him? In his opinion, it was quite a cruel situation. He sighed and smiled at his wife to wipe away her concern. Noite mal, Gio. Biondi, Huji, Gio. Nothing to worry about, Gianoa. All is great, Gianoa, Takuma remarked. She gave him a lingering stare, and then they both made their way up the stairs to the waiting area. Takuma didn't have much to say at the moment because he was essentially getting used to thinking normally again. It simply felt like he was cheated out of his own time, or better yet, he was cheated out of the work that he felt he put in, even though it wasn't in this reality. However, it caused a bit of stress as he went through it, and his mother. He felt that maybe she didn't deserve his forgiveness now, and that made him feel cruel, even with the memories in full appearance in his mind of how she abandoned him to death. As a child, he loved her like no other, and it nearly broke his heart incomparably to anything else when she brushed him out of her life, and still, he missed her and wondered what the heck was wrong with a man's heart, a human heart.